Shu was engaged to another, her life carefully arranged like a stage play, where every line, smile, and every gesture had been rehearsed. Yet, deep inside she carried a secret restlessness, a quiet voice whispering that her story was not as perfect as it seemed. And that voice grew louder the closer her wedding day approached. Reminder that fate often writes its own chapters, no matter how tightly we try to control the pen. Emma was admired by everyone in her town. She was elegant, hardworking, the kind of woman people pointed to as an example of grace and discipline. And her fiancé Daniel, a wealthy businessman with polished manners and a commanding presence, was seen as her perfect match. Man who could provide her with stability, comfort, and the future every parent wished for their daughter. When Daniel proposed with a diamond ring glittering under the chandeliers of a family dinner, everyone clapped, cried, and cheered, believing they were witnessing the beginning of a fairy tale. But what they could not see was the hesitation in Emma's eyes, a flicker of doubt hidden behind her practiced smile. As she whispered yes, she wanted to believe it was love. She wanted to believe that security was enough. Yet, at night, when she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her heart asked questions her mind could not silence. Questions about passion, about dreams, about whether Daniel truly knew her, or only the version of her that fit his plans. Still, she moved forward with the engagement, planning the wedding with careful detail, selecting dresses, tasting cakes, sitting beside Daniel in meetings with florists and planners, nodding politely as he made most of the decisions, all while reminding herself that this was the life she had chosen, the life everyone expected of her, too. And then, on an ordinary afternoon that seemed destined to be forgotten, everything changed. She was at the library, preparing decorations for a charity event Daniel was sponsoring, arranging flowers in crystal vases when someone bumped into her, spilling water across the table. "I'm so sorry," a voice exclaimed, warm and unpolished, carrying a sincerity she hadn't heard in years. She turned to see Alex, a man in simple clothes, with calloused hands and eyes that held the weight of quiet struggles, but also a spark of kindness. Their hands brushed as they both reached for the vase, and they laughed, the kind of laugh that felt unplanned, genuine, and strangely freeing. It should have ended there, a forgettable accident, but fate does not waste such moments. Though, over the following days, their paths crossed again at the coffee shop near her office, in the park where she often walked to clear her thoughts, and each time their conversations grew longer, drifting from small talk to dreams, fears, and memories. Alex listened in a way Daniel never had. He leaned in, not to respond but to understand. He noticed details Daniel overlooked, like the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of painting, a passion she had abandoned under the weight of adult responsibilities. With Alex, she did not feel like a fiancé trapped in a role. She felt like herself. At first, she told herself it was harmless, just coincidence, just friendly conversation. But her heart knew better, and soon she found herself looking forward to those chance encounters, feeling her pulse quicken when she saw him, feeling alive in a way she had not felt in years. Yet, guilt gnawed at her, for she was promised to another, bound by a ring and a date set in stone, and so she tried to pull away, tried to silence the storm growing inside her. But fate has a way of testing the walls we build. One evening, after a long day of wedding planning, she went for a walk to clear her mind, and found Alex sitting on a park bench, sketching in a worn notebook. She paused, curious, and asked what he was drawing. He smiled shyly, and turned the page to reveal a sketch of the park. The trees bending under the wind, the shadows stretching across the ground. Talent stunned her, but what struck her more was the way he explained it, not with pride, but with humility, as though he saw beauty in details others ignored. Day talked, until the sun sank behind the horizon, and in the glow of twilight, Emma felt something she had not felt with Daniel. Connection. It terrified her. She returned home that night to Daniel, who was busy on a business call, his tone sharp, his focus unshaken, and she realized she had spent hours with Alex without noticing time pass. While with Daniel, minutes often felt like hours. Still, she told herself she had made a promise, and promises must be kept. But the heart does not obey reason. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself torn between two worlds. The world of luxury, all day, order, and certainty, with Daniel, and the world of warmth, laughter, and genuine care with Alex. Daniel noticed her distraction, but mistook it for wedding stress, reassuring her with expensive gifts and promises of a future filled with comfort. Yet, none of it touched the place in her soul that longed to be seen, to be understood. The breaking point came one rainy evening when Daniel hosted a grand dinner to impress business partners. Emma sat beside him, dressed in elegance, smiling politely, answering questions with rehearsed grace, but as she glanced across the room, she felt utterly invisible, a decoration more than a person. Later that night, as Daniel spoke endlessly about profits and deals, she realized he never once asked her how she was feeling, never once noticed the quiet sadness behind her smile. The very next day, she ran into Alex again at the library, and when he saw the weariness in her eyes, he asked softly, "Are you okay?" That simple question undid her. For the first time, she admitted aloud what she had only whispered to herself, that she wasn't sure she was marrying for love. Alex listened without judgment, without interruption, his silence more comforting than any words Daniel had ever spoken. Emma knew she was standing at the edge of a choice that would change everything. A choice between security and truth, between expectation and destiny. The weeks that followed were a blur of conflict within her. Daniel grew impatient with her hesitations, pressuring her to finalize details, while Alex gave her space, never asking for more than she could give, never demanding, only reminding her that she deserved to follow her heart. The wedding day loomed closer, and Emma felt the walls closing in. The weight of the gown she tried on feeling more like chains than silk. The night before the ceremony, she sat awake staring at her reflection, the ring heavy on her finger, her heart pounding with a truth she could no longer ignore. And so, with trembling hands, she made the decision that would shatter expectations but set her free. On the morning of the wedding, as guests gathered and music swelled, Emma stood before the mirror in her bridal suite, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "This is not my story." With tears in her eyes, she slipped off the ring, left it on the table, and walked away, not into the arms of certainty, but into the arms of fate. Stay outside the church, in the quiet of the world beyond judgment. Alex waited. Not because he knew what she would choose, but because he believed she deserved the chance to choose freely. Then she appeared, her hair undone, her dress trailing in the wind. He saw not a runaway bride, but a woman who had finally found her voice. Though the road ahead was uncertain, though whispers of scandal would follow, Emma felt lighter than she ever had before, for she had chosen not the man who fit the world's expectations, but the path her heart had been calling her toward all along. And sometimes, it is in the moments when we dare to walk away from what seems perfect that we find the imperfect, fragile, yet fiercely real love we were always meant to discover.